Recently, I made a video titled 7 Things No One Told Me About Ethiopia, but there's more. There are more things that you should know before visiting this country, so we're going to continue along that topic. Growing up, I was around Ethiopians here and there, but I didn't really get too deep into the culture. So my visit to this country was, again, somewhat of a culture shock. Now let me start off talking about the clips that you're viewing right now. This is of a place called Lalibela, named after the king at the time. Now during that time, due to historical situations, it was difficult for Christians to make the journey to the Holy Land, which they call Jerusalem. And so the king at the time, Lalibela, wanted to create a new Jerusalem, a substitute. And that's why these churches were built. So that's what you're viewing right now. For the record, there are multiple monasteries and churches all over the country, but this place is very important due to the high concentration of them in one particular area. I believe in total, there are 11 within walking distance. And if you notice closely, you don't see any lumber, mortar, bricks. Well, that's because these churches were cut, chopped, chiseled, and carved out of stone. Today, buildings are built from the bottom up. Well, these were carved from the top going down, and they have their own drainage system, trenches, and multiple passageways that lead to other churches. And lastly, these are still used today for religious purposes. All of this is going to lead me into my first point. Ethiopia is a lot more religious than I expected. It seems like religion is a deep part of this country. Now, they have multiple ones. But what stood out to me, at least when I was there, was I think it's called the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. For multiple reasons. One, because of what I just explained, all the different monasteries and churches that were created all around the country. I believe Ethiopia has their own version of the Bible. Many, but not all, of the people here fast Wednesdays and Fridays for religious purposes. While everyone celebrates New Year's January 1st, here in Ethiopia, they celebrate New Year's in September, I believe September 11th. And lastly, many Ethiopians also have another calendar they follow. I believe it has 13 months, whereas many of you guys are familiar with the 12-month calendar. I think it's called the Julian James Dwayne calendar. I forgot the name, but you guys get the point. If you're from DC, around that Ethiopian community, and you're used to seeing them turn up, when you get to the actual country, I think you're going to be a little surprised. I'm not saying they don't turn up here, because they got that in Addis. I've seen it and I've drove past it at night, but it's a lot more religious than what you may have expected. For this next point, some of you guys may or may not know that Ethiopia was never colonized during the scramble for Africa. And because of that, I noticed that much of their culture seems intact. Now, because of globalism, many countries around the world are interconnected. So you will see some influences here and there. But for the most part, when you're in Ethiopia, or at least when I was in Ethiopia, it felt like it. You're going to notice this in the different languages that you hear, like Amharic, Oromo, Tigrinya, Somali, Afar. I know there's like 90 other ones. I'm not going to list them all. But you get the point. Many of the languages there are indigenous to the land. They also have their own alphabet. I think it's called either GS or I think it's Ethiopic. And from what I understand, and I've seen this online, you guys can correct me, either Ethiopia is the only country or it's one of few countries here on the continent that has their own alphabet. When it comes to the foods and drinks, like injera, when you see the injera meal with the shiro, daro water, whatever, when you see that meal, you're like, oh, okay, that's Ethiopian food right there. So, but just all in all, it seems like much of their culture is intact. But since I brought up food, let's get to that point. For all the vegans, for all the vegetarians out there, you are in luck. This place is very plant-based friendly. And I found many of the meals here to be, for the most part, very healthy. Obviously, you hear a lot about the Mediterranean diet, with the heart-healthy olive oils. You may hear about keto, no carb, etc., all these different diets. But I think people are forgetting one. It's the Ethiopian diet. I'm going to make it up right now. If no one else has made up a term, I'm going to do it right now. The Ethio diet. You have the healthy bread that's made out of teff grain, and then you have the different stews. And again, if you eat on a Wednesday and a Friday, they have the no meat stews, no meat and dairy, which is delicious because they use a lot of spices. That's the next point. I think you're either going to love or hate the cuisine here because of all the different spices that they use. But definitely try it out and make sure not to do what I did. You're only supposed to use your right hand for everything. Breaking off the piece of bread, dipping, eating. I'm not that good yet. I was using both hands. Oh man, And I think that's one thing people may mistake when they hear about, cultures and societies using their hands to eat. Although that is the case, it's with decorum, it's with good etiquette. We just have two more on the list. The first one is about the currency. When I was in Addis Ababa, I found it very affordable. The only thing that was really expensive was the tours. But the part I want to get to was about the denominations. When I went to the ATM to pull out money, the largest denomination that I saw was the 200 bill notes. 200 at the time was around $4. And remember, this is the largest bill. So you can imagine if you're pulling out $300, $400, you're going to have stacks on stacks on stacks of Ethiopian dollars, or Ethiopian currency, I should say. So just be mindful of that. And the last point is that at the airport, they only have one service provider, internet service provider. I think they're called Ethio. If you plan to be in the country for a while and you don't know if your Airbnb, hotel, you don't know if they have good internet, pay for the unlimited plan. The plan that comes with unlimited internet. That's what I did. And it worked out great because I had service everywhere around the country. And then there were some places, like when I booked out in the countryside, that didn't have internet or it wasn't the fastest. So what I did was I turned my phone into a hotspot and I connected my laptop to my phone's internet. Worked out perfectly. So I was able to upload videos quickly, watch live TV, etc., etc. So that'll be my advice. When you get to the airport, ask for the unlimited internet plan. Now, with all that being said, these were just a few things to keep in mind. Few things you should know when it comes to Ethiopia. Obviously, there's way more to this country. I was only there for a few weeks. When things get better in the northeast side, in the Tigray region, definitely want to hit it up because I want to hit up the law. But with all that being said, again, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found some value in it. And I'll catch you guys at the next one. Deuces.